Welcome to Calm Coding, the weekly cybersecurity podcast where we cover the latest news, threat intelligence, and the stories that you really need to know about right now.
And it has been a genuinely overwhelming few weeks if you follow threat intelligence. The landscape isn't just shifting, it's aggressively integrating.
Integrating how?
We're seeing threat actors move from those, high-profile, easy-to-spot ransomware jobs to this deeply integrated supply chain fraud and critical infrastructure exploits that are, well, they're designed to look just like normal work traffic.
Exactly. And our mission today is to cut through that noise to give you a comprehensive look at how these threat actors are evolving. We're moving way past basic brute force attacks here.
Right. This is all about sophisticated operational blending.
Yeah, where the attackers are actively trying to impersonate normal software developers and network engineers. So today we're unpacking three critical themes. This massive, financially motivated flooding of a major software registry, sophisticated state-sponsored attacks that are targeting routers and hidden compute power, and then the ongoing, and I think highly contentious, role of AI automation in cyber warfare.
It's all about financial incentives driving that registry pollution and stealth tactics driving infrastructure compromise. So where should we start? I think the development pipeline makes the most sense.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with just the sheer scale. The recent package flooding incident on NPM is almost unbelievable. Amazon Inspector, and for those who aren't familiar, that's AWS's security assessment service, it recently flagged over 150,000 packages, all tied to one scheme.
That number is staggering. It is, but what's so fascinating here is the motivation. This wasn't traditional malware.
What do you mean?
Well, Ender Labs researchers, they initially found about 43,000 packages, and this was over 2 years from just about 11 accounts. That was already, 1% of the entire MTM ecosystem?
Yeah.
But the packages themselves, they weren't stealing data or encrypting your files. They were entirely self-replicating spam, basically. Functionally benign code noise.
Wait, hold on. So they put in all that effort to flood the most popular software registry on the planet, and the packages didn't even do anything malicious. That seems like an enormous waste of resources.
It does, until you see the ultimate financial goal. And that's the core insight here. The vulnerability isn't the code, it's the economic system built around the code.
Right.
The purpose was pure token farming, specifically tied to the T.XYZ decentralized protocol. This thing rewards open source devs based on the impact score of their contributions.
So the attackers were just flooding the registry to fake their impact scores.
Exactly. To earn TE tokens, which have real-world financial value. They were trying to game a decentralized finance system using a centralized development registry.
And they succeeded at a massive scale. So when Amazon updated their detection rules to catch this specific behavior, they found, what was it?
Over 150,000 packages, all linked to this exact campaign. And they found that in about a week, that kind of volume is almost impossible to defend against.
Yeah, that speed, that unprecedented volume.
Yeah.
It's why researchers are calling it one of the largest package flooding incidents in open source history. It really shows how these financial incentives are just polluting the registries.
It makes it harder and harder for legitimate developers to trust the supply chain.
Okay, so from just flooding the registry with junk, let's turn to surgical precision. Let's talk about the Lazarus Group, the North Korean state-sponsored actors, and their, what's it called? The Contagious Interview campaign.
Yep, and this is a textbook social engineering campaign. It relies entirely on weaponizing a developer's trust and, their curiosity. Lazarus approaches them through fake LinkedIn job offers or requests for help on coding projects.
Things the developers do every single day.
Every day. And the attack vector they use to deliver the payload is brilliant in its simplicity, but it's insidious in its stealth. They ask victims to download a demo project.
From a legitimate site, right?
Yeah.
Like GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket.
Correct. And here's where it gets really interesting and becomes a huge headache for security monitoring. Inside that project, they hide a base64 encoded URL disguised as an API key.
And that URL doesn't point to some suspicious IP address or an obvious command and control server.
No, it points to legitimate, whitelisted JSON storage services like JSON Keeper, JSON Silo, and endpoint.io. That's where they host the actual malware.
Okay, from a security monitoring perspective, using JSON Silo, that sounds brilliant for an attacker.
Yeah.
Why is traffic to a JSON storage service so easy to overlook.
Because JSON storage is incredibly common in modern software workflows. I mean, if you use block lists, you have to block all traffic to a legitimate functional service that 90% of your developers might rely on.
So they just blend right in.
They blend right in. Their malicious activity looks exactly like a normal software developer pulling configuration data from a legitimate resource.
And their goal, once they're in, is highly financial, exfiltrating sensitive data and crypto wallet information.
And the payloads are comprehensive. You've got BeaverTail, Invisible Ferret, and TsunamiKit, which is this nasty cryptojacker that installs XMRig for Monero mining. It's a full-spectrum data theft operation hiding in plain sight.
So if we zoom out from the development environment and look at pure infrastructure, we start seeing state-sponsored actors and financially motivated criminals exploiting what are often, well, fundamental security failures. This starts with Ray clusters.
If you're working with AI models or big data, you know Ray. It's the open source framework for distributed computing, essential for training large Python programs. But what happens when a critical flaw in that system just goes unfixed?
You get widespread exploitation. And that flaw was a critical severity vulnerability in Ray 2.6.3 and 2.8.0, remote code execution via unauthenticated API.
And the company behind Ray, Anyscale, they didn't patch it. They stated explicitly that these clusters are designed to run in a strictly controlled network environment.
So they effectively shifted the entire burden of security onto the user, basically said, it's your problem.
And threat actors have taken full, ruthless advantage of that. The group tracked as Iron 440 is exploiting this, often using scripts hosted on, you guessed it, GitHub and GitLab.
And they deploy cryptojackers. But what I found most compelling about this was their evasion tactic. They deploy XMRig, which mines Monero.
Right.
And typically, when a system is cryptojacked, that XMRig process just maxes out the CPU. Hits 100% usage. It's a huge red flag for any sysadmin.
But Iron 440 learned from that. They actually limit the XMRig process to 60% of the processing power.
Why 60%?
Because that 60% is often just enough to stay under standard baseline monitoring thresholds. It quietly siphons off resources without tripping the alarms that a 100% spike would trigger. They're running a massive, silent shadow economy on stolen compute power.
And the scale of this is terrifying. Researchers warn that today there are over 230,000 Ray servers exposed online. Just imagine that number.
250,000 systems. Many designed for heavy-duty AI and ML workloads. It's a massive, ready-made botnet just waiting to be harvested. All because of an unauthenticated API.
It truly highlights the risk of relying on security through obscurity.
Or assuming users will configure things perfectly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of state-sponsored infrastructure attacks, you see groups like the China-aligned PlushDaemon group doing similar things, but they're targeting the physical network fabric itself.
Right, PlushDaemon. They've been active since 2018, focused on routers and network devices globally. US, New Zealand, Cambodia, Hong Kong.
Taiwan, mainland China. Their entry point is often just exploiting known vulnerabilities or using default admin credentials that were never changed. Once they get that initial foothold, they deploy an implant called EdgeStepper.
Okay, this is where the sophistication really comes in, right?
Absolutely. EdgeStepper is the crucial first step. Once it's active, it manipulates the device to redirect incoming DNS queries, specifically for software updates.
So instead of going to the vendor's update server,
the queries are covertly sent to a malicious DNS node controlled by the attackers.
And this attack chain just keeps getting deeper. It shows an incredible dedication to complexity.
It does, and it's genuinely terrifying. That malicious DNS node serves a malicious DLL file containing the Little Daemon downloader. Little Daemon then serves the demonic logistics dropper, which executes in memory.
Avoiding disk artifacts.
Right, and it finally retrieves the ultimate payload, SlowStepper. That whole chain shows a determination to avoid detection at every single layer.
So SlowStepper is the final tool. What capabilities does it actually give the attackers?
It's highly versatile spyware. It can pull system info, deploy Python-based spyware for logging keystrokes and stealing credentials, or just execute files and run commands. And because they've compromised core routers, they effectively have a permanent strategic choke point for surveillance and theft.
This isn't just a software supply chain attack. This is a supply chain attack at the network infrastructure level.
Yeah.
Which brings us neatly to our third theme. How classic social engineering is leveraging modern technical legitimacy and the huge ongoing debate about AI automation. Let's start with that fake Microsoft Teams OAuth phishing campaign.
This is a textbook example of blending social engineering with modern authorization. Attackers are sending fraudulent emails pretending to be automated Teams meeting invites from an HR department.
And they use the correct Teams branding, clear join the meeting now links, all of that.
But the technical sophistication is what makes this a nightmare for defenders. They're using compromised GMX mail accounts, which lets them rotate up to 10 sender addresses easily. And crucially, the email successfully passed the critical validation checks, SPF, DKIM, and DMRC.
And for anyone listening, passing all three of those gives an email this unusual level of technical legitimacy. It's highly likely to land in your inbox, not your spam folder.
Right. So the victim, they see the legitimacy, they feel the HR urgency, and they click the link. It directs them not to a typical login page, but to a compromised Azure web app titled, "Please confirm attendance." And the ultimate goal is to get the victim to grant OAuth authorization.
This raises the most important question for our listeners. What exactly does granting O access cost you?
It costs you everything short of your password. And that means the malicious web app gets persistent control, even if you later change your password. It can read your profile, access your emails and files, and send emails on your behalf.
That is a huge distinction compared to traditional password phishing. If I fall for a password phish, I can change my password immediately and I've revoked access. But with OAuth,
With OAuth, that malicious application holds a valid token, a key. Until you manually go into your account settings and revoke that specific token, the attacker has the highest level of persistent compromise without ever having your actual password. It completely bypasses multi-factor authentication.
okay, finally, let's address the elephant in the room. AI, Anthropic, made waves recently, claiming Chinese hackers used its Claude platform to launch fully AI-orchestrated cyberattacks, something like 80 to 90% AI intervention.
Yeah, and this claim has been met with, let's say, considerable skepticism across the security community. It's often viewed as potentially inflated or maybe an attempt at market positioning in the US versus China AI race.
So what's the reality check we should apply here? Is the AI actually taking over the attacker's job?
The reality is crucial. AI does speed up the attack process. It drastically reduces the time between, say, reconnaissance and exploitation, but it still requires vital human input.
Because it can't think for itself strategically.
Right. It only copies, organizes, and accelerates existing steps. As security researchers point out, the AI agent is taking the place of the human driver of existing tools.
So it's not designing 0 days or deciding who to target. It's just executing the tedious work, but much, much faster.
Precisely. It can write the scripts and execute the stages much faster than any human could manually, which drastically reduces the window for defenders to spot the attack in progress. The velocity is the threat, not the strategic replacement of the human attacker.
And we should always remember the context here. Anthropic's own reporting said only a small number of these AI attempts were actually successful.
It enhances human capabilities. It's a force multiplier, but it is not replacing the human intelligence directing the campaign. Not yet, anyway.
So to synthesize what we've covered today, the key takeaway really is operational stealth. Attacks are relentlessly targeting the development pipeline itself, from the NPM pollution driven by token farming to Lazarus using legitimate JSON services as covert C2 infrastructure.
And those infrastructure attacks on RAID clusters and global routers, they're being driven by silent, direct financial motives like Monero mining, often under the radar at that 60% CPU usage.
The complexity of blending in, whether it's using GMX to pass high-level email validation or hiding advanced spyware on trusted code repositories, it just means defense requires vigilance at every single layer of the stack.
Not just the perimeter anymore.
Not at all. We're seeing multiple sophisticated groups, PlushDaemon, Lazarus, IronArm 440, all actively using existing code repositories like GitHub and GitLab and development tools like NPM and JSON services as their command and control infrastructure.
They are quite literally trying to look exactly like a normal software developer.
Which leads to our final provocative question for you to consider. If the threat actors are achieving this level of mimicry,
How do your security teams distinguish hostile campaigns from normal day-to-day software development activity in a highly collaborative and decentralized ecosystem?
how do you flag the hostile traffic when it's traveling over the exact same legitimate channels that your business relies on? That is the core challenge of modern supply chain security, and it's something every organization needs to be mulling over right now.
Food for thought indeed.
Thank you for tuning in to Comcoding. We'll be back next week with more on the news and stories shaping cybersecurity.